Hi, today we're going to be looking at the Diamond Edge 3D graphics card that I've recently got, and we're going to be installing it into a PC. This card uses the NV1, which was the first microprocessor to integrate a GUA acceleration device, a wavetable synthesis, video acceleration, 3D rendering and a game port into one single chip. The card has 2 meg installed as standard, and you can upgrade it to 4 meg. Joystick port there, VGA and audio in and outs. This is the PC I'm going to be putting it into, the Dell Optiplex 5166L MMX Pentium processor, 64 meg video RAM, 8-speed CD-ROM. Nice little machine. Just getting it booted up now. This is the packaging that the graphics card came in. A bit dog chewed now, but a couple of Japanese original controllers it comes with. Here we've got like a registration card. You've got the user manual and instructions of how to set the card up. These are the bundle of games you get with it: Virtual Fighter, NASCAR Racing, Panzer Dragoon and Descent. That's the actual graphics card. I'll fight it to get it out of the box. This is a neat little add-on. This is the game port interface that goes into the back of the PC to allow the game controllers to plug directly into the PC. They are standard Sega Saturn controllers, so any of the Saturn's controllers would work with this graphics card. That's the graphics card itself. Interestingly, this card integrates a lot of features. Not only is it a video accelerator, but there's a sound card built in, and your game port can be plugged in as well. Not only the Sega Saturn game ports, but standard joystick with the aid of a little adapter. It'll come out. I'll show you what the little bag of goodies contains. What we've got in this little bag is all the little connections. So we've got the adapter for the standard joysticks to be allowed to be connected to it. We've also got 2 ribbon cables that allow us to connect through to the little daughter cable to allow us to connect the Sega Saturn joypads to it. Little audio bypass cable, and then the lead that goes from the CD drive to the actual card to allow CD audio to be streamed direct to the card. And we've got the driver CD. There was also supposed to be some floppies, but there's the floppy drive, CD-ROM drive, power supply, heatsink, processor and RAM, an audio card, a network card, and obviously the main board on this PC. This is a nice little touch of this unit. Little cantilever comes out, and you can remove all of those little expansion boards on like a daughter board. Very clever little idea. Makes servicing and putting things like this in a lot easier. So we're going to strip this down, get these original cards out of the machine, just held in with a standard screw as usual. So what we've got on the top is a sound card. It'll come out. Nothing particularly fancy, but sound card and a game port. This one was a bit of a surprise to me. I was expecting just a modem, but this is actually a proper network card. So with those 2 out of the way, I can start to offer up the Diamond Edge 3D. Now really at this point I realised that it was going to be a bit fiddly, because it's not just about shoving this card in, you've got to marry these 2 together. So and they're not dedicated plugs, they are just ribbon cables with an end on, so you can fit them in any orientation. Luckily on the silk screen there is markings to show you where pin 1 is, so obviously pin 1 goes to the little red identifier on the cable. As you can see here, I'm starting to get a bit muddled up trying to get these to go into the right orientation while I'm doing it on camera. take it off and get a bit of a closer look. As you can see, it just says 1 on the card next to the red identifier on there, and then there's a red identifier there to pin 1 on the 2 different ports. So once you've got it lined up, that's pretty much, you can slot it back into the PC. Get these screwed back into place, get them nice secure. The design goal of this graphics card really was to offer a high-end multimedia solution all in one, which was great if you didn't have anything else, you hadn't already got a PC full of nice expensive equipment. If you'd already got a good graphics card or a good sound card, the last thing you wanted to do was put this in, really, because it wasn't fantastic at audio, and as we'll come to talk about later, it was problematic in the decisions that Nvidia decided to go with about its graphics processing, really. In 1995 this was released, and in July 95 Sega offered their support, and in November Diamond Edge started selling it, basically barely making it as the first texture mapped card available. Now that we've got it all bundled, you can see the orientation on the back where all the joystick ports are. Bit of naff really, where you have to drag the whole PC out to be able to get to those ports, but once they're in, I suppose fair enough. That's it back inside the PC, which is an all-in nice one solution if you've got nothing better in your system. Obviously once we get it plugged into the machine, got it booted up, start to reboot the PC, and it starts asking for drivers. This turned into a bit of a ball ache. It did, on initial booting, decide that there was a new card installed, and it did ask for new drivers, as you can see here. But on several reboots and some bits of installing software, none of the drivers actually installed properly into the machine, so it didn't actually work straight out of the box. I had to manually go in and update the drivers and point the PC to the actual drivers. First out the box, we're going to try Virtual Fighter, one of my favourite games. So what we've got here is the PC running up against an actual Sega Saturn. It is a European Sega Saturn, so it is a PAL Saturn, so it is going to run a little bit slower, and does appear to run a little bit slower, even though this card was branded, a European card. Obviously it does have NTSC timings, because it is slightly faster than the actual Sega Saturn that I'm using. Rendering wise, it's interesting to see the draw distance and some of the actual gaming differences between the Sega Saturn and this. It's not too far out, some of the rendering is quite nice. Just goes to show what they could do at the time. One thing it is a pain in the arse is that screensaver keeps popping in. So no, it is a Sega Saturn inside a PC. It's exactly what it says on the tin. It does allow you to play specialised Sega Saturn games, which was a little bit disappointing. I think if this would have played standard Sega Saturn games, not specially written ones, like the 3DO version, 3DO Blaster, that runs 3DO games straight out the box. This doesn't. This was only has a selected few that was specifically written for it. So therefore, plugging a normal Sega Saturn game that's made, that has been converted to the PC, unfortunately it won't work with the control pads. It only uses. I think that must have been why there was the inclusion of a standard joypad interface, because there are only certain games specifically written that will use the actual game pads that are for the actual unit, which I found a little bit disappointing. I thought it's gone so far to make Sega Saturn compatible, and then why knock out the rest of the library? Another one of the included bundle was obviously Panzer Dragoon. I think this actually looks slightly better on the PC. I don't know why. I think the colours just look a little bit nicer, and the water effects. Could just be particularly the monitor that I'm using. Obviously one of these is captured and one of these is on a screen. I couldn't get the PC to capture properly. I don't know why, but so I had to take actual external video. So, and as you can see, as we're moving along in this video, you can see that the Sega Saturn, the PAL Saturn, is slightly slower than the left-hand side, which is the PC. So it's starting to move quicker into the game. Fantastic game this. I never really appreciated it when it first came out. It's only years gone by that I never played it on emulator. It literally, this particular Saturn on the right is playing through a satiator. Normally I'd use a mode or something like that, but what I actually have come to like about the satiator is the fact that you can take it out of one machine and put it in another. The mobile side of it is really cool, actually. Yeah, great game. Never really appreciated it, but now that I'm reliving it on this PC, it'd be really nice. Interestingly, there wasn't enough games for the NV1 chipset. Despite a lot of initial interest, developers pretty much gave up and just went straight to the Saturn itself, because that was obviously out at the same time. Nvidia used the NV1 chipset and used influence from Sega to use the quadratic rendering system rather than a traditional polygon system. The reason for that was that Nvidia was hoping that they would be the source for all Sega games on PC. After the NV1 had launched, everything was still looking bright for Nvidia, and Sega endorsed it. The games library was increased, the support for their games library, but unfortunately the industry decided that the other type of polygons was the better way to go, and typical 3D engines weren't compatible with this graphics card. Another killer blow to this card was the fact that it retailed at about $450 when you compared to other good cards on the market, such as the STG 2000 Edge 3D cards. They were going for about $250 at the time. So there was little desire in the market, for this chipset. Even though Sega tried to bolster the game lineup, and obviously they added controllers into the bundle as well, it was a little bit too far, considering most of the industry was going with the triangular polygons, the more traditional ones that we now see. Sega's approach just didn't take off, and unfortunately it affected the card's sales. The reason Nvidia went with the quadrilateral rendering was that the graphics card could render curved surfaces better. They were smoother, they weren't so jagged, so they didn't require any after processing. So the NV1 was not really compatible with OpenGL at the time, and used basically like a wrapper technology. So direct 3D titles, which were obviously Microsoft were trying to push, Nvidia tried to get Microsoft to add support for the quadrilaterals polygons, but they refused. The traditional triangles used in the normal rendering systems just really made this card struggle to do that. So pretty much that was really what was the death throes for this particular card. It just couldn't do direct 3D very well, even though a driver was implemented. It wasn't a proper driver, it was basically just like a software add-on. Wasn't really done from the card, so the card really did struggle trying to do that type of rendering. Okay, just got to finish off this boss on this game and we're about done. Really nice system, the Sega Saturn. It's a shame it didn't really live on. It was a very complex machine. We've been looking into the infrastructure of the actual motherboard and the way that it dealt with graphics, and it was a very, very flexible machine. It just, the flexibility, I think, made it hard to program for. This card obviously tried to take the success of Sega and put it into the PC, very much like the 3DO. But unfortunately, just like the 3DO, it was the wrong card at the wrong time. All we can take away from this is that this was Nvidia's first sort of foray into the 3D acceleration market, and it was great that obviously Sega was there to help push them along. The PC market was something that obviously Nvidia have gone on to dominate. After the NV1 chip, there was obviously an NV2, which was significantly more powerful and obviously had much more going on. But eventually Nvidia crumbled and they had to go with just go with standard triangles, like the rest of the video game industry went with. So unfortunately, that was when this sort of technology died with it. I do quite like these cards. I now have, like you say, the 3DO Blaster. I've also got another one that's up and coming, which is the PCFX GA card. That's a DOS V card. I'll be doing a video on that at some point. But obviously this card came along and I was tempted and couldn't really resist the fact that having a Sega PC was something pretty special to have. So I'm really pleased that I got the chance to do this video and actually experience, you know, pretty much what Sega's and Nvidia's vision was at the time. Shame that obviously Sega didn't continue along these lines, but that's just history. That's the end of that particular first stage of Panzer Dragoon. We'll leave that there. One of the other things that this card came with was like a bit of a MIDI player. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it. It was a bit naff. The graphics capabilities of this, obviously we've talked about. The audio capabilities aren't particularly great. It was an okay card, nothing really fantastic. So there's the PC all back together, ready to rock and roll and play on. All nicely put back together. So that's it. That's the Diamond Edge 3D. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you again in the next video. Cheers, bye.